to the Geary Area Committee meeting. Please note the meeting will be recorded and published online for public viewing after the meeting. Councillors should only use their microphones when invited to speak and should remain muted at all other times. Members should use their video for the whole meeting if their connection allows. If members wish to speak at any point, please use the hands up function in the Teams meeting and I will bring you in at an appropriate time. Please do not come in during items unless I invite you to do so. Can I just confirm that all members have been able to access the presentations provided by the committee officer in advance of the meeting?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go first to Alison, please, to take the sederant.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Councillor Ewanson.
Present.
Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Gifford.
Present.
Councillor Grant.
Present.
Councillor Joji.
Present.
Councillor Keating.
Present.
Councillor Launchy.
Yes, present.
Councillor Mason.
Present.
Councillor McHale.
Present.
Councillor Miller.
Present.
Councillor Payne.
Present.
Councillor Reid.
Present.
We have apologies from Councillor Smith, Councillor Walker,
Present.
and Councillor White.
Present.
We also have Anne Overton, Area Manager, Jill Joss, Senior Solicitor, and we have Helen Atkinson, who is delivering and presenting the planning items today.
Okay, thank you, Alison. Move on to declarations of members' interests. Can councillors use the hands up function to indicate if they wish to intimate an interest or provide a transparency statement? Please provide the item number, nature of the declaration, and whether or not you will leave the meeting. I don't see any hands, but I will declare a transparency statement for item 9 because the bid manager is speaking on that item and I'm responsible for an office which is in the bid area, so we're bid members. But I can stay for the meeting, it's just for transparency. Okay, then we move on to the equalities duty. In line with the council's legal duty under section 149 of the Equality Act 2010, do members agree to have due regard to the need to eliminate discrimination, harassment and victimisation, advance equality of opportunity between those who share a protected characteristic and persons who do not share it, and foster good relations between those who share a protected characteristic and persons who do not share it? And where an integrated impact assessment is provided to consider its contents and take these into account when reaching a decision. Do members agree?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. So it's also proposed today to take item 11 in private. Can I ask for that to be agreed?
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. We then move on to the minute of the last meeting held on Tuesday the 17th of March. That's being considered for accuracy by members who were present at the meeting. And I think we do have an amendment spotted. Item 5, paragraph 3, sentence 3, where it says whether a storage, I think it needs the word unit added after storage to make sense. Do we agree?
Agreed.
For that amendment. Is there anything else in the minute? No, so with that amendment, we can approve that minute. Thank you. Moving on to item 4, statement of outstanding business. Alison, you're going to take that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There's really not much to add on this one. We've got new dates in. There was a request from the committee that I agree an appropriate date for item 2 that would hopefully take into account the planning application, although it's impossible to know how long that will take to go through the process. So we have set on October 2026 for that one. And we have a new item on which is due to be reported to the May meeting. So it's all in a holding pattern at the moment.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? No. Okay, thank you. In that case, then we can go on to item 5, which is our first planning item of the morning. It's full planning permission for erection of building for restaurant use class 3 with drive-through takeaway, sui generis, and associated car parking and landscaping. And it's a site adjacent to Aldi on Harlaw Road in Inverurie. And it's application 2025-1438. And I'll hand over to Helen Atkinson, the
Chair,
planning
before
officer.
you do that, we do have a request to speak that is coming
Oh,
in
yes.
this item.
Yes.
If you would like the committee
So-
to just determine that.
Okay, there are requests to speak on behalf of the agent. So it's Leslie Tierney from Kellis and Mark Peters from Fairhurst have requested to speak. Do we agree to hear from them?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So we'll go to the, first of all, though, we'll hear from the planning officer, and I'll just get the committee officer to confirm councillors and officers that are in attendance.
The people who were speaking were actually here for the sediment, so they will already know, Chair.
Okay, all right. So over to Helen then to present the application.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Good morning, committee. Just before I start the usual presentation, there are a couple of corrections, so apologies for that. At paragraph 9.1 of the report, there is a list of departure policies, and that list should include MPF 4 policy 27, which is city, town, local and commercial centres. And the recommended condition number 12 should be reworded to allow operating hours until 2300 hours. So just to make members aware of that before I start my presentation. So as the chair has introduced, the application is for a restaurant and drive-through at an area of land adjacent to the LD car park, LD store in Inverurie. The application site is shown here in the red line. Site is flat, it is accessed through the LD car park. It's bound by a close boarded fence to all sides except the northern boundary here, which appears to be an old brick wall. As I said, part of the site is within the LD existing car park and presently accommodates 7 car parking spaces. The site is surrounded by a range of land uses, and it is also within the town centre the town centre boundary in Inverurie. So slide 3 shows the usual aerial view of the site. The rectangle here is the Aldi store. This is the bowling green. This sort of darker brown area is the application site. And this rectangular space here is the carriages residential accommodation. Slide 4 shows the proposed layout. So it would be a cafe building, has floor space of around 200 square meters and includes an internal seating area. Excuse me, what have I done? Sorry, just bear with me. Where's that gone? Has the PowerPoint disappeared? Sorry.
No.
Oh, it's gone from my screen. Just bear with me a second. Where's it gone? Sorry, can I just stop sharing? It's disappeared from my screen and I don't know how. Just bear with me, sorry, members.
Okay, we'll just pause for a moment. It's okay.
It's maybe my... Okay, is that showing okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so apologies. I don't know, maybe my cough did something untoward. Okay, so The layout is fairly self-explanatory there. Vehicles vehicles will enter the site on the western side. There's an order point here where you can obviously select what you want. Vehicles will then make their way around the back of the site. This is the collection point, and then vehicles will leave through the lane there. There is, as I said, a sort of remodeling of the spaces here. So we would end up with 6 spaces in total. 4
Helen,
of those.
your pointer's not working, so we're not seeing what you're pointing at. You're telling us, but you're not showing
Oh,
us.
there it is. There it is.
I just saw the
It's
cursor.
not working as it should do. My laser seems to have. Have you got? Is that visible?
Yeah.
We see
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
We're seeing the
Okay,
cursor, not the laser.
I'll stick with that for the time being. I'm completely thrown. So we have 6 spaces here. 4 have electric vehicle charging points, and 2 will be accessible spaces. There is a bin store here, so this sort of rectangular area here, bin store and air conditioning plant. And there is a acoustic fence along the side here, this black line, which would be 3 meters in height as well. So in terms of what the building will look like, features, obviously single story. There would be this sort of projecting element here that's likely to be used for signage in the future. Across this axis here, which is east to west, it would be 21 meters, and it has a depth of 10 meters north to south. This top image here would be the elevation that's essentially facing into the LD sort of supermarket car park. This is just a section through, just to illustrate that point. And slide 7 just shows the internal layout, fairly typical of this kind of operate. Internal seating with some ancillary spaces here for kitchen area and toilets, and obviously the serving hatch there. So turning to the presentation, just wanted to highlight to the committee that this is the first application before you today since the Inverurie local place plan was registered in January of this year. So at paragraph 5.4 of the report, the local place plan, so the LPP, has been summarised, and paragraph 7.1 and 7.2 of the report, we tried to set out how the development aligns with the LPP. So it's worth noting that in addition to feeding into the local development plan process, LPPs are a material consideration in the determination of applications, to the extent that their content is relevant to the proposal that the members are being asked to consider. So just an introduction of slightly different content in this report. So the key matters for consideration are set out at paragraph 6.1. As you can see from this slide here, the site is within the Inverurie town centre boundary, so that's just marked with this black dashed line here. So it's at the northernmost end almost of that boundary, and it is a vacant site. Considering the principle MPF4 policy 9, which relates to brownfield vacant derelict land, and our own LDP policy P3, which is infill developments, both support the sustainable reuse of brownfield land, which includes vacant and derelict land. As the site is within the town centre, MPF4 policy 27, and our own policy B1, which both relate to town centre development, also need to be considered. And they obviously encourage a town centre first approach to high footfall generating uses. And policy B1 explicitly other frequently visit our town centres. As set out at paragraph 6.5, MPF 4 policy 27 does have content specific to drive-throughs, and state that LDP will consider and, if appropriate, identify areas where drive-through facilities may be acceptable, where they would not negatively impact on the principles of local living or sustainable travel. That same policy goes on to state that drive-through developments will only be supported where they are specifically supported in the LDP. As our LDP was adopted prior to MPF 4, we do not have any sites in the LDP that are allocated for drive-throughs. So given the wording of MPF 4, for area committee to actually support this proposal, this would need to be considered as a departure. The Chief Planner letter of February 23 also talks about drive-throughs and states that suitable locations may be those allocated for class 3 and food drink. But it also states that regard should be given to wider policies with MPF 4, including those relating to reducing emissions that contribute to climate change, and to wider policies that aim to improve our town centres and support local living. Informing a judgment on whether the principle is okay, the planning service gives weight to the fact that this is a vacant site. It is in a town centre, and there are clearly advantages to seeing the site developed, such as a variety of choice in the town centre, economic activity and employment. It was also the case that it would support the 20-minute neighbourhood concept, being a town centre location accessible by a range of modes. Other matters do, of course, need to be considered, and these more significant ones now as I continue the presentation. So slide 5, in terms of siting, layout and design, as we can see, probably more from that slide, the building is sort of tucked away at the back of the site, and we do have the fairly typical drive-through lane snaking around the back of the building. The building itself is fairly modest in scale, finished in modern materials, and gives a contemporary appearance with glazed elements. As I said, this top image here is the front elevation. Building design and scale are considered to be acceptable given the sort of mixed use nature of the area and buildings around it. So the policies regarding siting, layout and design are considered to be satisfied. In terms of residential amenity, that slide hopefully shows the relationship here. We've got the properties known as the carriages to the east there, and you've got crossover road sort of intervening land there. There's a separation distance of 30 metres between the easternmost boundary of the application site and the western facing elevation of the carriages, and a 3-metre high acoustic fence is proposed along this boundary here. That will obviously serve as a visual barrier to activity as well. And there are also limited openings on the eastern face of the restaurant as well. Noise obviously needs to be considered when we are thinking about residential amenity as well. A noise impact assessment has been submitted and has been considered by colleagues in environmental health. And they have raised no objections subject to the inclusion of conditions to restrict delivery times, limiting noise from plant during certain hours, and the provision of acoustic barriers. It's also necessary to limit the operating hours, as I said, from 6:30 in the morning to 11 p.m. in the night. At night time is what has been conditioned by condition 12. And the view of the planning services that this is considered to be reasonable, given it is a town centre location. There is already activity associated with more commercial elements opposite the site, but there is obviously a residential presence there that has been factored into that recommended condition. So matters relating to residential amenity and noise are therefore considered to be acceptable, subject to the conditions outlined. Matters relating to access, transport and sustainable transport are also discussed in the report. And just go back to that slide there. Oops, that slide there, which shows a proposed layout. As I said, there are presently 7 spaces in this area here, and these would be remodeled as part of this work to form the 6 spaces that you can see on this slide. This would still retain 121 spaces in the wider LD car park. Roads Development is content with the sort of technical aspects of the site and the proposal, and they have no concerns in this regard. Roads Development does, however, maintain an objection to the principle of the proposal on the grounds that locating a drive-through facility within a town centre and a highly accessible location is contrary to NPF 4 Policy 13, which is sustainable transport, Policy 14, which is design quality in place, Policy 15, which is local living and 20-minute neighbourhoods, and they also refer to Annex E of NPF 4, which seeks to reduce car dependency. In considering sustainable transport, Policy 13 encourages, promotes and facilitates developments that basically prioritises walking, wheeling, cycling and public transport for everyday travel and reduces the need to travel unsustainably, such as the private car. The development does include some sustainable options. So there is a link across here. There's a footway linking the development through. As I said, there are electric vehicle charging points. The supporting statement says there will be cycle parking provided. The site is also fairly close to bus routes on Harlaw Road. So there are some stops within 220 and 440 metres of the site, depending on your direction of travel. So the site is accessible to those choosing to use more sustainable modes of transport. The planning service does, of course, accept that for some, the formation of a drive-through like this will mean that they access the site by a private car, and they may choose to just go for a single purpose of buying a coffee at these premises, which would go against policies obviously that seek to reduce car dependency. Views of road development is that the formation of a drive-through will be contrary to these policies, and that in itself this would increase car dependency and likely to promote unsustainable travel. As ever, the policies that seek to promote sustainable travel and reducing emissions needs to be balanced against other policies in the development plan that support the use of vacant land, or policies that promote variety in our town centres and economic growth, all of which are material considerations. Matters relating to landscaping, biodiversity, contaminated land, drainage, waste management and energy have all been satisfied, and where consultations have been undertaken, consultee comments and recommending conditions are incorporated into the recommendations. So to conclude, there are a range of matters to consider in the determination of this application. The development plan does contain policies that support the use of vacant land and economic growth. And there are obviously town centre policies that support a mix of uses in those areas. There are, on the flip side, there are policies that seek to reduce car dependency and promote sustainable travel options. If there is potentially there's a degree of conflict across a suite of policies, and the chief planner letters say that this is to be expected, but the development plan needs to be read as a whole. It is, of course, for the decision maker to decide how much weight policies in the determination. And set out in the report, the planning services of the view that the development can be supported as a suitable departure, and that is the recommendation contained in the report. So just some quick photos to get our bearings. So this is access in off Loco Works Road, so obviously taken from Google Maps there, and this is the existing access into the LD car park. This is the road that bounds the east of the site, crossover road. You can just make out this sort of grey fence here, so that's the application site, and we can start to understand the relationship with the carriages, which is the residential development that I mentioned. This is a close-up of the site, obviously just bound by close boarded fence at the moment. Looking back again, the close boarded fence is the application site. This white band here is the Aldi supermarket, and you can see the car parking in between the two. That's the boundary with crossover road. This is me looking into the site. So you can see it's just sort of laid to grassland at the moment and has been secured by a fence. And these are the spaces that would be remodelled as discussed. And that's just looking back away from the site, essentially, down crossover road. So that concludes my presentation. Obviously happy to take questions as and when required. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Helen. Questions from members? Councillor Grant, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Helen. Few questions for you. Just starting off with the opening hours. I mean, it's open to the public 7 to 11, and it will open for business access at 6:30, but it would still close at 11 at 2300 hours. It wouldn't have that extra half an hour on at the end for any cleanup operations at the end. Coming to the roads objection, the objection to it does seem to centre on the drive-through aspect of the application, with reference to NPF 4. So I think I'm correct in assuming, as it says in the presentation, that it's based on policy rather than a practical estimate of what the actual impact would be on traffic flow. Is there any modelling being done potentially on the increase in traffic that would be accessing the drive-through? Can you just remind me as well, how many parking spots are there? So it looks like just a few, so I'm presuming there isn't enough room for people to park, so that's the need for the drive-through. I'm just wondering what the specific need, what is the specific need there for there to be a drive-through element incorporated? Because that seems to be the issue at hand. It could potentially influence the traffic flow and when counter to NPF 4. And you mentioned at the end about balancing that aspect of it versus the positive aspects, providing extra business and etc. for the town, and striking a balance. And you mentioned that the drive-through wouldn't negatively impact on sustainable travel. What's the evidence for that? How do you actually evidence for that? That's all for now. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Quite a few points there. Ken is in the call, so perhaps I can deflect to Ken in terms of the sort of layout and the concerns of roads development. But in terms of what's on the slide just now, then there are no concerns from roads developments about the layout and the technical aspects of the sort of geometry and the number of spaces. The concerns from roads, which has obviously resulted in the objection, is more about the principle of a drive-through and the patterns that could encourage in terms of maybe single trips, and with the sole intention of just purchasing a drink from this establishment. But if Ken wants to add more, then feel free, Ken. I'm not sure if you do or.
You want to come in, Ken?
Thanks, Chair. I don't really have anything to add to what Helen said. The numbers of visitors will depend on how popular the restaurant is. So maybe the speakers who are about to present, they might be able to confirm what the anticipated trip generation might be. But as Helen's pointed out, it's more the principle. The layout and the car park sharing is fine by us, but it's the fact that it's a drive-through is our main concern.
Thanks, Ken. So it's basically on the basis of running counter to NPF4 policy, whatever it was, 30 to 27, rather than any sort of practical estimate in terms of the number of cars.
That's correct.
Through. Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay. Thanks,
Councillor.
Okay.
And,
Do you want to any of the other points, Helen?
Yeah.
Sorry, what were the other points?
Yeah, it was just initially about opening. So opening to the public
Okay.
7 to 2300 hours, and business opening at 6:30. So I'm presuming there's not an extra half an hour added on at the end for the business to close. Yeah. Okay.
No.
And I think that was largely it, actually. Yeah. Yeah. That's fine. I'll leave it there just now and listen to what others have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Bailey, please.
Thank you.
Well, I think it was Dominic before me.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, there you are. Councillor Launchy. Apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Ellen. Nice to see you again. I got two questions for you. The first one, 4 EV parking spaces. Are these going to be available for civilian vehicles, pardon me, for non-EV vehicles? My question, if they are not available, where are the normal cars going to be parked?
Okay. Maybe it's a question for the speaker after me, but I would imagine that they would need to be available for petrol, diesel vehicles. Yes.
Well, petrol or diesel. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
And the second one, I take it that Aldi car park is private. So is there a relationship between the applicant and Aldi? And or if there is none, do they have permission to use Aldi car park for access?
Again, that might be a question for the speaker, but that, in my mind, that would be a private civil matter, whether an applicant has permission to use somebody else's land would be a matter for the applicant to resolve. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Bailey, please.
Well, Helen, I was wanting to ask a question specifically about the restaurant side, the capacity of the building. How much the customers is there expected within the floor space for the building at any one time?
Thank you, Councillor. I think again it might be something that the applicant can. I don't have that to hand. It's fairly small floor space, so I can't imagine there would be a huge amount of covers. But again, if it's something that you would mind asking the speaker, you'll probably get an answer from them rather than me. Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor White, please.
Thank you, Chair. So my question was about roads as well. I'm not sure if Ken will be able to answer it. It was also about the additional traffic that might be generated from the site, and if roads had considered the egress onto Harlow Road, particularly a right turn, if there was going to be much more in the way of a volume of traffic.
Can you answer that, Ken? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we have had a look at the Local Works Road and the Harlow Road junction, and we consider that the additional flows are unlikely to impact on the operation of that junction. It should, bearing in mind the size of the development, we think that those junctions will continue to work satisfactorily.
And that can be assessed without knowing the volume of traffic that's likely to be generated, or have you been able to do some sort of estimates on that?
The junction is well within capacity just now. There are no delays on that, and we haven't any information on which to base it, but based on experience, we don't consider that junction is going to become over capacity by the addition of this drive-through.
Business. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keating, please.
Thanks, Marion. Hi, Helen. 4 questions. I think the first one, you mentioned that LDP 23 didn't have an allocation of drive-throughs. Is that because we decided not to put any in, or was it simply that an allocation for drive-throughs wasn't a thing when we did LD 23, as it predates NPF 4? And on a similar basis, the extent planning permission which did allow a second retail site on this location, what is that, the class 1, class 3 approval? In other, because it's mentioned in 5.3 that the planner said if we've got if there's a class 1, class 3 allocation, it can be used for this sort of purpose. So I'm just checking that the existing planning permission does actually have effectively a class 1, class 3 approval. Third question, and I guess Dominic talked about a bit as already, is the unless somebody's planning to put a wall along that car park, it's just a car park. We've seen from the picture, and having visited that Aldi store, those 7 spaces, to be 6, are just part of the existing car park. Now, the boundary here seems to be moving what I would regard as the Aldi car park, which includes the 6 spaces you've got on that map. So I'm just not sure if it's just a shared car park. And I know you told us already. I'll ask the agents when they speak to us. But on that map, and this is the bit I guess I struggle with, the gap for the vehicles egressing the drive-through from the 6 spaces that you've put in there, or that have been put in there, and the remaining, what was it, 121, 115 spaces, that looks awful wide. When I think and looking in Google Maps and actually some of your pictures, the space between the 6, those 6, and the red line to the south, that looks an awful lot wider than I think it is on the ground. So I'm just wondering, and again, it depends on volume of traffic, but those spaces immediately to the south are double banked. So the only way to come out of them is to drive in to the egress area. So I'm just wondering, has somebody had a look and make sure that that isn't going to give a problem to some of the car parking spaces? Or are we just removing some of the car parking spaces, although the paper says we're not? And the final point would be, and it's about the opening hours. Thank you for clarifying the 2000 hours becomes 2300 hours. I was a bit worried about that. But we've got delivery vehicles arriving up to the last minute of operation of the site. So I wonder, the same way that we have 0630 and 0700 for delivery vehicles, shouldn't we have a half-hour knocked off the end of the day, such that delivery vehicles only arrive up until 2230? Apart from anything else, I would imagine they're going to be the noisier sort of vehicles, and thus improve the amenity of those living in the carriages. Those are my questions. Thank you, Helen.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keating. So in terms of the first one, which related to the LDP having no drive-through allocations, I would imagine that is as a result of the timing. If you recall, LDP just came out maybe 6 weeks before NPF 4. So whilst we would have had sight of the NPF 4 and its content, we wouldn't have had the time to go through an exercise to start looking for sites that may be suitable to be allocated. So I think it's just a consequence of the timing of both of those documents and their publications. In terms of the extant planning permission, the planning history section in the report refers to that 2007 consent, and it does clearly say erection of 2 retail units. So to my mind, that restricts it to a Class 1 use. In terms of the roads and spaces, yes, there is quite a broad gap there. Well, it's very generous, let's say. All I can just reiterate is that roads development are content with, as I said, the sort of the layout, the geometry, and how this could work. So someone, i.e. roads, would have looked at that and they're happy with what's been tabled. And in terms of deliveries, then yes, it would make sense to essentially knock half an hour off the delivery condition, just to sort of streamline that a little bit, and that might be something to put to the speaker, the agent. But yes, that would make sense, Councillor Keating, just to align those so that there isn't the potential for sort of noise beyond the hours of the operating. So yes, I would think that makes sense.
Thank you very much. So just to go back, I think you did answer it. So the LDP 23 doesn't have drive-through allocations because it wasn't a thing, basically. We didn't look to put drive-through allocations in because it predated NPF 4.
Yes,
that's fine. That's fine. And yes, therefore, under 5.3, the existing planning permission does have a Class 1 location. Therefore, it falls within the remit of the planner's letter. That's fine as well. And I guess maybe it is a question for Ken. Yes, he's assessed that very generous gap as being acceptable, and I agree that looks very generous and acceptable. I'm just questioning if it's real on the ground, because when I look at my source of data, Google Maps, it just doesn't look as broad as that. Yeah, that. Unfortunately, you haven't quite looked at the camera angle that I'm looking at. But yeah, that's it. That doesn't look, to my eye, and it's an eye. It doesn't look as wide as the diagram shows us it to be. And as you can see, you can't quite see it, but just to the left of that picture, it's a double bank of parking. Therefore, people are coming out of those parking spaces into that area. I just would like some assurance that people are comfortable that that's going to fit. And somebody at some point will tell me. Hope. And then we can just talk about the opening hours with the speaker.
I can have a look at the plans on the system whilst the speaker's speaking to get that clarified, but it does suggest there's some discrepancy there between this map and that photograph, definitely.
Oh, good, it's not just me then. Thank you.
It doesn't look like it. I don't know, Ken, have you got anything you could add? Sorry.
Thanks, Helen. I agree that the red line boundary might be confusing. We're, as far as the parking is concerned, the development was based on original development was based on 2 commercial units, and so the car parking was designed to cater for 2 commercial units. So it's our understanding that the car parking area is shared.
Okay. So we can clarify that with the speakers as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Thank you. Can I go to Councillor Reid?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Helen, for the presentation. Just a couple of quick questions. The first one is just on the actual height of the development in comparison to Aldi and the neighbouring property. I couldn't see that. And secondly, it basically relates to roads and their objection. At 6.35, roads say that the drive-through in the town centre is contrary to NPF4 policy 13, 14 and 15. And further on, planning say that the departure policies, it's policy 13, sustainable transport. So there's a difference of opinion here. Is this just a matter of interpretation of the policies from planning and roads, or what? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. I don't know the height of the Aldi supermarket, so I can't sort of say what the comparison is. All I can give is the facts about this proposal. I don't know whether it's taller or not about Aldi. So what was the paragraph 6.35? I think you said, Councillor Reid. Is that right?
Yeah, it's 6.35. Roads basically say that it's contrary to NPF4 policy 13, 14 and 15. And obviously further down, when we were talking in the report about the departure policies, you list that it's departing from policy 13. So simply asking if this is if there's an error there, or if this is a matter of interpretation, or what?
I think I would say it's more interpretation. Policy 13, sustainable transport, obviously quite clear what the intent is there, but it's to reduce car dependency is one of the things, but it does talk about creating opportunities for sustainable transport options. So as I said, there are electric vehicle charging points, there's going to be cycle stores. It is located fairly closely to bus stops on Harlaw Road, and there are opportunities to walk to the site. So you may think that represent, or the planning service thinks that represents some opportunity for sustainable transport. Policy 14 is design quality and in place. Generally talks about building designs, materials, things like that, but it does talk about reducing car dependency. So again, there is that element of policy 14 where it could be argued that this proposal doesn't comply with policy 14, but equally it ticks quite a lot of boxes in terms of what the building looks like. And equally, policy 15 talks about local living and 20-minute neighbourhoods. The view of roads is that it doesn't meet those requirements, whereas the view of the planning service again is that it does pick up on some aspects of policy 15, local living. It introduces a mix of sort of another land use within our town centre that's fairly easy to access by means other than the private car. So I don't think it's an error. I would say it's probably a judgment. One aspect of the council thinks it doesn't comply with all of these policies, whereas the planning service thinks that there are elements of these policies that it does comply with. And I suppose that's what I'm saying is it's a balancing decision for the decision maker as to how much weight to give to aspects of these policies. And as I said, the chief planner letter does talk about conflict not being unusual and to be expected. And I think this probably drive-through proposal is a good one to demonstrate that there are conflicts, and it's how do we balance those conflicts in the decision-making process.
Okay. Is that all right, Councillor Reid?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Mason, please.
Yeah, I just want to confirm something that should be obvious to everybody, but I just want to confirm that this is a drive-through and you can sit down and have a coffee inside. It just we've only talked about the drive-through, but there is a facility. There will be a facility to sit down and have a coffee inside.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
That's right, Councillor. Yeah,
yeah, I've never seen it. I've never seen one of these drive-throughs that doesn't have it. It just that it hasn't been mentioned. Right, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I just had a couple of questions as well. I've nearly forgotten. Delivery vehicles, going back to the slide, where do they go?
Sorry, Councillor, there is something. It is in the report. Bear with me a second. Sorry.
I was just concerned that deliveries would need to be out with the time when we have all these cars queuing up to get in, or where would they I mean, what direction do they take?
Again, is it something we could ask? I've seen it in the papers, but it's not jumping out at me just now.
Okay, I can wait and ask the speaker.
Sorry. Thank you.
They might have that at the fingertips. Litter management as well. I mean, in the papers it'll say there's a litter management plan that's acceptable. I just wonder if these litter management plans go far enough, because the litter isn't dropped at the door, it's dropped 3 miles out the road, and we get caught out with that over and over again.
I suppose there's a thank you, Councillor, a limit as to what the planning service and planning conditions can do. That the operator can only really be responsible for tidying up the immediate area.
Yeah.
So yeah, that unfortunately that is a limitation of these types of conditions.
Yeah, and the other one was it's maybe for the applicant, but why the 11 o'clock closing?
That happy to take
That's
that.
very late. Yeah.
It is what's been tabled by the planning service. That felt like a balanced judgment in terms of the operating hours. We have to acknowledge that it is within a town centre, so there is a degree of activity from LD, which I've probably stopped closes at 10, I'd have thought. So there is already a level of activity that might be more typical of a town centre location. So it was just to sort of reflect on that, and that there is residential accommodation. So that was a recommendation of the planning service in the papers before you.
That was what worried me, is the residential accommodation there, because you've got all the carriages houses and you've got blocks of flats as well. It's very close. But we can ask the applicant about that as well, if there's a need for it to be open till 11 o'clock at night.
Okay.
Okay, so no more questions for the planning officer. So in that case, we'll ask the speakers to come forward, please. You've got seats there at the end of the table. I can't quite see that in the shot, so could somebody let me know when they're there?
There.
They're there. Okay, so welcome. You'll have 5 minutes between you to speak to the members. I don't know who's starting.
Chair, I'll do the presentation, so to speak. Judging by some of the questions so far, it may be that poor Mark does me thereafter, but the initial presentation will just be myself.
Okay, all right, so just start when you're ready, Leslie.
Thank you, Chair, councillors, and to the officer for their presentation. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Leslie Tierney. I'm Planning Director with Kellis, and with me is Mark Peters, Technical Manager with Fairhurst, and obviously we're happy to take any questions you might have. So I have detailed knowledge of the various local works developments from my time as the Area Planning Officer for Garioch, several years ago now, I may add. I'm therefore delighted to speak to you today about this project, which brings about the delivery of the final element of the 2004 Town Centre Development Brief. Fundamentally, the proposal is for a restaurant first and foremost. However, bearing in mind the drive-through element, the Chief Planner's Transitional Arrangements Letter of February 2023 is clear that NPF4 does not place a ban on drive-throughs. Indeed, it's highly material that sites with permission for Class 1 retail use, as in this case, are highlighted as being entirely suitable for such proposals. And looking at roads matters first, it seems rather obtuse that development out with the town centre is not acceptable because it's less sustainable. Yet in a highly accessible town centre, there's an issue because a drive-through encourages trips by private car. This approach fails to consider wider roads-related policies and guidance with which the development is compliant. Other considerations include that the extant permission generates more vehicle trips than the proposal. The volume of diverted vehicle trips from strategic routes will not be significant, and the bulk of pass-by and diverted trips will be largely made up of local trips within the town centre. The various land uses in the area suggest that most development is largely reliant upon car use and provide large car parks for customers. They are all, of course, also accessible by sustainable travel modes. The inclusion of a drive-through lane does not change the site's accessibility to sustainable transport, and it's well located to cater for walking trips. Cycling provision is good, and the level and proximity of bus and rail services nearby offer a viable alternative, particularly for employees. Customers can still drive to the facility without using the drive-through, and a trip will still be made whether there's a drive-through lane or not, so the traffic impact is essentially the same. However, most visitors will already be in the town centre, on the local road network, or already parked within the Aldi car park, and these are therefore not new trips. The proposal may not reduce car dependency by virtue of the drive-through element, but it is crucially not car dependent. Turning back to the Chief Planner's letter, the LDP was published before MPF4, so there are no allocated sites for drive-throughs under the terms of Policy 27. However, the extant permission lends the strongest support to the principle of development. Sound reasoning has also been given for accepting a sensible and suitable departure from Policy 13, not least as discussed the location of the site in the town centre with various nearby sustainable travel options. This is not an unsustainable development on the outskirts of town. The proposal is otherwise fully compliant with the development plan in terms of brownfield land, improvement to the amenity and appearance of the area, provision of EVCPs, local living, economy and jobs. With regard to other matters, the additional landscaping, screening, acoustic barriering conditions covering deliveries and noise levels ensure no additional impact on residential amenity. Site investigation, waste, habitat and biodiversity matters have also been addressed. The local place plan identifies traffic congestion as an issue. However, the proposal does not cause additional traffic or congestion, and it helps support the aim of family-friendly cafes which open on Sundays and in the evening. The Community Council do not object, and although the few objections are understood, there is equal public support, including rather eloquent comments from a young girl who notes that the site is wasteland and the development will provide further choice for the growing town of Inverurie for all age groups. To conclude, the approved development brief details the mixed residential and commercial use of this expanded town centre area to encourage vitality and viability. This is a small-scale, sustainable proposal entirely complementary to that mix. I therefore commend the positive report and recommendation to you and respectfully request your support. Thank you.
Sorry, I had my mic off there. Thank you, Leslie. It's now over to councillors to ask questions of the speaker. We had some questions that we were hanging on to from before. Councillor Launchy.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'll come back to my two questions, which were not answered by Ellen. The first one being, there are 4 parking spaces for electric vehicles. Will these be available for non-electric vehicles?
No, because electric vehicle spaces are for electric vehicle cars. So the car park, so below what you can see in the slide there, the actual car park there was designed and built to accommodate Aldi plus the retail units that have consent on that site. So it's a shared car park. So the transport statement supports this the applications, provides a summary of the car parking provision of what actually Aldi is permitted to have by maximum car parking standards, which I think, or I can confirm exactly what it is, because I have that in front of me. Just bear with me. So the Aldi would be entitled to have 96 car parking spaces, and the non-food retail would have been entitled to have 41 spaces. I think overall there was 122 spaces. The drive-through is 25 spaces, so 96 plus 25 is, what's that, 121 spaces. So the existing car park has 122 spaces. So in terms of car parking, it is bang on what their maximum car parking standards permits.
Well, my question was very easy, and you have answered it to start with. Those 4 spaces will not be available for non-electric vehicles. The second question that I had was, I take it that all the car park is private. So basically, to operate that retail unit, you would need the permission to drive through all these car park and or have a relationship between your company and Aldi. So my question is, first of all, is there a relationship between your company and Aldi? And secondly, do you have permission to specific permission to drive through Aldi car park? Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Launchy. Obviously, there's elements of the relationship that are, commercially sensitive. So, I wouldn't go into too much detail. But obviously, we have to legally serve notice on, Aldi to take the access through there, and that's part of the discussions that have been going on with them. There's no objection to that. There's no objection from them being submitted to the application. And obviously, legal notice has been served there. So absolutely, I can't go into the exact ins and outs, but there is agreement in place. And if there wasn't, I'm sure there would have been a very lengthy letter submitted by Aldi's planning consultants about that.
So basically, again, easy question. Do you have permission to drive, to have people driving through Aldi car park or not? Thank you.
The car park is a shared car park that is linked back to the original planning consent for the would have been outline planning consent. Would have been for
it was a full planning for 2
for the 2 retail units and in the Aldi. So the car park serves that whole area that was in that original consent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Grant, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Leslie. My question partially answered by Councillor Launchy's question there. So basically, the car parking you required to utilise some of the older car park to provide that extra space. But my question, I was just coming back to the drive-through element, which that does seem to be the single, well, the main sort of sticking point here. But what was the business imperative or logic behind incorporating a drive-through element as opposed to resiting the building structure within that space and creating a few more parking spots? Thank you.
To answer that one, yeah.
Well, Councillor Grant, I mean, I think we all know that this is the business model for the preferred operator here. Fundamentally, this is a cafe. That first and foremost, it's a cafe where you can go to in your car, drive, and walk in and sit down. The drive-through element has obviously become very popular over the last few years, and as I say, it is very much their business model. I think it might be useful to draw a comparison with other applications. For example, the one at Morrison's, which was originally going to be a drive-through. Now that element was removed in that case to assist in gaining permission because of the location of that particular development in a far less sustainable location. Obviously, the desire for the operator to locate in this location, albeit there is the drive-through element, is of essentially all the other boxes that this site ticks. Its location, its sustainable location, accessible by a variety of transport modes, the use of brownfield land, and of course, most importantly, bearing in mind the Chief Planner's letter, that sites with permission for retail use, and in this case an extant retail permission, are ideal for this type of development, including the drive-through element.
That's great, thank you. And how many cars do you potentially envisage going through the drive-through per hour, per day? Is there any modelling or projections on that? Thank you.
Just bear with me, I can provide some information on that. So the transport statement includes a comparison of I suppose the vehicle trips that would have been expected for the consent for the retail, and comparison with what it would be for the drive-through. And I mean, I think we've looked at it from an AM and PM peak hour. We've looked at it in terms of daily trips. So your extant retail development generates around 500 more vehicle trips in a day rather than what the actual drive-through would generate. Obviously, that's based on surveys, survey information. Could very much depend on what the actual retail use is, but we can only use obviously information that's available, what it could be. So I mean, in terms of, and I think as Ken said before, in terms of traffic impact from this development, it is essentially demonstrated that it could be less than what it would be if it was retail. And I think it's important as well to note that the junction itself onto Harlow Road was assessed on the basis of it being the retail element. So it was assessed with it being a higher level of traffic potentially coming out from this site.
That's fine. So thanks very much for the answer. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keating, please.
It's Marion. Marion's asked a couple of questions. I won't steal them, but my questions will try and nest into them. So would the applicant have an issue if we reduced the times when delivery lorries could arrive by half an hour from the closing time, whatever that has finally ended up as? Because to me, if they arrive at the same time, when are you going to unload them? So to me, a half hour would help.
I mean, I think obviously Starbucks or whoever it is. I mean, this is they're doing this every day. They have their programs in place in terms of when they're getting their deliveries and when they're getting their sort of refuse collections from that. And we have, as part of the transport statement, or that no, it was actually addressing waste services consultee comments. They'd asked about deliveries and how it would operate, and whether it be within operating hours, out with operating hours. So we've kind of done a sweat bath analysis to demonstrate sort of both scenarios, so an out with hours and in terms of hours, to show that it doesn't impact on customers or customers' car parking or and like that as well. So I mean, I don't think they'd have any issue with that.
I mean, I would be, I mean, they're not here, we can't ask them, but I think the important thing to think about is that there's obviously also, other legislation that covers any, impact in terms of the environment. The Environmental Protection Act is there to cover nuisance or any issues with hours of operation. And something else I was going to say. I've lost my train of thought.
Okay.
So I mean, I would guard against reducing the hours, because that's a normal their normal operations follow that. Also in terms of the hours of operation, the hours of opening as well. Particularly, I think as Helen said, they can also assess this because of the proximity of the residential development nearby, but there's still some distance there between, and obviously this is a town centre location. Yes, there's residential there, but they have it's a bit buyer beware in a way. People have bought a property there on the basis that they are aware of And probably by the time they did buy the property there, everything else was in place apart from this one remaining piece of the jigsaw, I suppose.
Whilst to make the other legislation, Leslie, I must be honest, I prefer all the things to apply to a site to be in the one document. It makes it so much easier than people having to go and find alternative legislation. So, but they're not here, so I accept you can't commit them to something. And I think the second question, and it is about the picture two further on, the map, if we could, Helen, that gap, yes, that gap between your 6 parking spaces and the southern boundary, that just looks a lot wider on this diagram than I think it is on the ground.
Yeah, it's moved the.
So you're actually moving the car parking spaces.
Those 6 spaces are moved. That the unit.
Oh, they've moved up. Yeah. Ah, right. They've moved into the side.
So I think the slide you just had on before showed the kind of existing layout. So
okay,
put that one
no,
back,
that's
and then you can almost see just that. So yeah, so it's effectively, I think, goes back about 5 meters.
That's fine. No, yeah, that's okay. So
it wasn't your eyes.
You've lowered the tires. You've not raised the bridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, there's more space kind of in that area. Just to ensure just to ensure that there's not that. I think conflict between the drive-through vehicles and the vehicles, as you're right in saying that's the park in there. You can obviously double bank. So
Mark, fine, thank you. That's answered my question.
Okay, thank you. Glad we've cleared that one up. Councillor Bailey.
Yeah, 2 questions, if I may. One was on the capacity for the restaurant part itself. I'm just wondering how many people, because we're talking about sustainable travel here, people walking to the restaurant and so on, but I'm wondering what the capacity is for the crowds within the building itself that are going to be taking.
I mean, this is a fairly standard, floor print, and purely on the basis of others. It's between around 30 and 40 covers within the building.
I think it's about exactly the same. Might even be the same building as the one at Blackburn.
Right.
Yeah.
Similar floor space, size, square meterage, and so on. So for same amount of customers you would.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, obviously the one at Blackburn, much more, that does have a drive-through. Sort of, you're looking at that kind of link between the X6 and.
Yeah. The second question is, and it comes back to some of the concerns that colleagues have voiced, but on this slide here, what is the access for the 6 parking spaces? Is it within the actual having to go through the drive-through to then turn right to park, or is it straight from that road?
No, you can just go straight. You can just go straight into that area. Yeah, just as
that gives me concern, because if you have to go nose first in with a vehicle, you've got to reverse out. If you go in and you have to reverse in, then you're obviously stopping and reversing into the space. Will that not be a conflict for anything that the other traffic coming around the drive-through area?
I mean, it's a standard kind of layout, drive-through facility, where you have parking in there, and then you have the bank on parking and opposite.
But can you give me settle myself that there's not going to be any conflict with traffic coming around with the drive-through that could collide with vehicles that are trying to park at the time?
I mean, I suppose it's like any car park. If you drive around a car park, you're reversing out of a car parking space, and there could be cars coming and pedestrians walking from the Aldi store back to their cars. So, I mean, it comes down to awareness, driver ability, and
yeah, but I mean, from designs that I've seen, you talked there about you've talked about various types of layouts for these types of stores, but I've never seen one of these drive-throughs where the actual parking for maybe that 6 spaces or similar is directly from the road that links into where the drive-through is. It's always within the capacity of the site itself, so that you can work it as a drive-through. You enter one way, you exit another safely. There's no conflict of driving into reversing park and reversing traffic and so on. How can you?
I think that's
console me that that's not going to happen here.
I mean, I think that's pretty much exactly how Blackburn 1 is, in terms of you've got the drive-through lane, you have your disabled parking at the front of the building, which is effectively what those 4 of the 6 spaces are disabled spaces there, which is obviously where you want to have the disabled spaces, so that they're they're directly there, and then you kind of go around from there. I mean that is pretty much just any drive-through that I can think of operates, whether it's a cafe or whether it's a McDonald's or anything. They have parking at the very front of the store, drive-through around the back.
So it'd be clearly defined that this is a part you can park, and this is to maybe traffic coming through, and it'll be safe to do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a car park. It's a car park, and it's a drive-through lane in the car park, which is fairly standard. I mean, I think, as I say, Ken and his team have assessed it from the roads development point of view, and they've obviously not raised any concerns with layout or the operation of it being within the car park. I mean, the fact that we've moved it back further is the fact we've created more space to ensure that there is actually potential for a left conflict on there. So, and if you're coming out of that drive-through lane, and you naturally you drive to the left, so you come to the left, so there's obviously a significant amount of space then to avoid to avoid conflict of anything coming out of the out of the car parking spaces for there. So,
okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Gifford, please.
Yeah, thoughts just occurred in the back of other questions and answers there. And it's about the allocation of these parking spaces. And just a quick check. 2 years ago, it was only 3% of vehicles in the country were electric. If they've even trebled in the last 2 years, which I doubt, that's 10%. Why are you excluding 90% of your customers by making these EV only?
I don't think we are.
There's, as far as I know, there's no rules that say that everything has to be electric. In fact, they're absolutely not.
No, we're providing 4 EV spaces.
Yeah, you've only got 4 spaces.
No, they haven't. They've got the car park, as everyone seems to be calling it, the Aldi car park is not the Aldi car park. The Aldi car park is the car park for the Aldi store and the site. So the car park is spaces that, so you could argue that so the 21 spaces that this facility is entitled to is, in that car park already. So
are they going to be designated for the cafe as opposed to Aldi, or is it just?
Well, no, it'd just be shared use in there. I mean, just like it is in any sort of retail park, you don't have, like, oh, this is this unit, this is this unit, this is this unit. It's shared parking in there, but it's the amount of car parking that is provided within that car park is suitable for the combination of Aldi and this as a drive-through unit, or it was deemed suitable for this or for the additional retail units.
So non-EV drivers are healthier because they have to walk further.
Get the steps in.
I mean, I think as well, the EV, I mean, the EV parking as well is now, my understanding is that you can actually only park in an EV parking space if you are charging your car. So, this is an issue, and it comes up a lot of the time with car parking, and myself and Ken have had recent discussions and debates about, whether it should be included within allocations or whether it should be, additional. But and there's no clear sort of guidance really on that. But it is an issue because obviously most people actually don't charge their cars. They charge at home because they have preferential charging rates through the electricity companies.
Okay. So I think we're clear on the car parking, because that seems to where a lot of the questions have come from. The thing I asked earlier on that you might be able to answer is delivery vehicles, looking just at that very slide there. Where do they actually go? How do they access the building?
Okay, so So just on the west side of that slide, just beyond where that red line is, that's like a turning kind of head area. So basically your delivery vehicle, you can see on that one, just on the, you can see where Aldi's is at the very sort of north of the Aldi, in there, and then up in the other, just north of there. So that whole area there is basically like your turning sort of head provision for vehicles. So basically your delivery vehicle or refuse vehicle would go straight up to where that pointer is, and then it would reverse back and sit in, we sit in from there. And we've done a couple of scenarios of an out of hours, potential and within hours. So there, I mean, I think certainly in terms of refuse collection, I mean, I think that's probably more likely bound to be sort of operating within operating hours, and it's literally go up, they'll take the bins to it, empty them, and then go. So there's sweat path analysis drawings are done, because I think your colleagues in waste management had sort of asked for more details on just exactly how that would operate through their consultation. So that was provided back to them for them to remove their objection.
Okay, thank you. The other one was on opening hours. Is it necessary for a drive-through coffee shop to be open till 11 o'clock at night?
Councillor Unson, when this report was published the other day, and we noticed that the opening hours weren't correct, I did do a bit of questioning about this. Obviously the Aldi is open till 10 o'clock. The most recent permission that Starbucks has had is also in quite a mixed use area, a town centre location, and the permission there was granted with an 11 p.m. Closing time, and therefore that's what we confirmed to the planning service, that would be desirable in this location.
Okay, I didn't realise they were open that late at night, and it's very near to the Garioch flats, was what was concerning me.
I think the thing to note as well is obviously Environmental Health have looked at this and have raised no objections about that.
But then when they looked at it, the closing time was 8 o'clock, not 11.
That was a mistake by the planning service, I believe. Councillor Unson, Helen can confirm.
So they would have been aware. The other thing is there'll not be any like cooked hot food here. I'm thinking of odours and things. It is just coffee and whatever else, biscuits or whatever else they serve.
Correct.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Councillor Bailey, please.
Yes, just one very quick question, really. On the previous slide when we showed the car park, now we know where the lorry areas and drop-off area is going to be. The detail, can you tell us a wee bit more about the detail at the to the right of the car park, the part inside the pedestrian crossing, what that detail is?
Which bit? Sorry,
this area here. Yeah.
The actual bit in the landscape kind of area.
Yes.
There. What is that? I think that is. Well, there's obviously you've got the footpath connection through to the crossover. I think there's some kind of is there a
it's just a plant.
Yes, like a plant. Yes, like plant. So that one is like it's got like the X, on there. That's like it's like plant.
Plant
related to the EVs and things as well.
Yeah.
What about waste stuff? Or maybe that might have been
the waste is up. Yeah, it's up. That's where the waste is there, and you can see the door that's the side there. So the waste gets taken from there down. And then down and effectively into the large area where the vehicle will sit effectively in front of those car parking spaces while the delivery, which is fairly standard procedure.
Okay. All right, thank you.
sorry, my mic was off. There's no actual bin storage area then?
There's
So
an internal,
inside.
yeah, the bin store is at the side there, yeah.
So is that an outside bit then? That's not a building, that bit? It looks inside.
Yeah, I don't think it's not in. I mean, there's obviously access from in. I'm not sure if it's actually. I'm not sure if it's got a canopy over it or not. I'm not sure the elevation. It's like I might show that, but it's like, yeah. So it's accessed. You can obviously access from the store, from the kitchen area. They can use it, and then the refuse collection people will go in from where that side door is.
Okay, but there's no vehicle access for bin lorries up there?
No.
It's at the other side? Right.
No.
Okay. Right, so are there any further questions? No. Okay, thank you. Oh, I've muted myself again. So just now, if the speakers can return to the seats up the side. And Helen, do you have any comments or questions following the speakers and the questions?
No, nothing from myself. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So, and councillors, similarly, have you got any further questions for the planning officer following the request to speak? No? Okay. So I can open the debate, but before we go to consider it further, can I confirm that members are satisfied that they've received all the necessary information and feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes.
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 Okay, so it's in Ward 11, that's Inverurie District. So I don't know, do any of my colleagues want to come in first? Councillor Keating, please.
As well. I'm supportive of this application. I definitely tend to the planning services interpretation of sustainable travel. When I compare this site with, I don't know, one just to the south on the A96, with all the housing around here, it seems to me much more likely that this will actually generate walking and cycling rather than car trips, notwithstanding the existence of the drive-through. It fits the request of the local place plan, where we're looking for longer nighttime establishments and Sundays. I think 5.3, the chief planner's letter, with regard to the fact that we have no sites allocated because we didn't allocate sites, and this is a class 1 existing approval, says to me this is in line, and it uses a vacant site. So I think all of these things count in its favour. The one thing I would like, because notwithstanding Ms. Tierney's assurances about other legislation, I wonder, because I like to do this, can we give a delegated authority to the planning officer to discuss with the agents and then with the Starbucks themselves whether we could take half an hour off the end of the delivery vehicle time? If the answer is no, I wouldn't stop this planning application. That's why I don't want to bring it back. I just would like to give a delegated authority to ask the question, because I do think it would be useful if the delivery lorries were stopped half an hour before the end of operation. That's me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor White, please.
Yes, thank you. Similarly, looking at the land use here, I consider it to be compatible with the mixed use nature of the site location. It has an extant consent, and I think there's strong weight to be put to the fact that it is a vacant brownfield site that is going to be developed. It supports the 20-minute neighbourhood and sustainable transport and active travel. I'm assured that the traffic that is most likely to be visiting this location is going to be traffic that's going to be on the network anyway. So I'm content with that. And I think it does add to the variety of our town centre provision. It's going to support economic growth, job development. Also, I'm pleased that it's adding an alcohol-free venue, particularly in the evenings, and I think it's going to be attractive for people of all ages. I've used facilities like this in the past when my children were at sporting and other activities in the evening, and you end up going for a walk and have nowhere to go. So having somewhere like this, I think, will be an added benefit for the town. The only thing I would like to comment on is the litter management. We haven't seen the detail. I'm not aware that we've seen the detail of that. I would respectfully ask the operator of this location if they would be interested. They were very welcome to engage with the Inverurie Litter Prevention Action Plan that the community is actively involved in. And it's not for this application, but I would like at some point in the future to see number plates being printed on takeaway cups, but that's not for this one. But I am supportive of the principle of this development and the application in front of us, and for the reasons set out in the report, I'm going to support it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Bailey?
I'm too happy to support this application. It does fit in with sustainable travel, the 20-minute neighbourhood as well. I think official to the town and the aspect that's the opening hours, the aspect that the for the different age groups and so on, that it will appear to give you somewhere evening to go to for some people. So yes, I'm quite happy to support it. I have no problems with the operating hours as such, because it's been a worked model elsewhere under various establishments like this that operate to these hours. So it's been a proven model. So for me, that is not an issue. I'm quite satisfied that all my questions have been answered today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I would just come in and say that obviously I support all of the application as well, because it is using a brownfield site that's currently vacant. I think it would just sort of finish off that area of Inverurie. Slightly concerned at the late opening till 11 o'clock when it's so near people's houses. And I agree with Councillor White's comments entirely on litter management, because as we know, these type of facilities just generate litter. I mean, we're getting the litter from the Blackburn one in Inverurie, and we get McDonald's litter, which must come all the way from West Hill. So goodness knows how it gets there, but it is a serious worry. So I think that's something we need to be aware of as we go ahead. But I think it does add to the offering in Inverurie, because of the hours that it's open and the type of facility that it's offering. So I would be in agreement as well. The other members wish to come in? No. Okay, so in that case, I'm not seeing any alternatives. So if we look at the recommendations as written on page 37 into 38 and agree the reasons for departure on page 41. Jill, were you wanting to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was just as Helen had mentioned earlier, that policy 27 was to be added at 9.1. I think you'd probably want to add that into the reasons for departure, so it would be does not apply to NPF policy 13 and policy 27. Perhaps I could just double check that with Helen. That would be.
Yeah. Okay, Helen.
Yes, thank you, Jill. And yes, it would be appropriate to add a sentence into the reason for departure to include policy 27 as well. Thank you.
Okay. And I think when we're agreeing the recommendations, the one about the opening times, it's 7 till 11.
Yeah, condition 12.
Yeah, condition 12. Councillor Keating?
It's fine. So I just was, is everybody else happy with the 11 o'clock for the delivery vehicles, or would we like to at least ask the planner to talk to the agents and thus the operator to see if they will bring it in by half an hour, as I've suggested? But I just like other people's views.
It is a suggestion, but I'm not sure how practical that would be, because these big companies tend to have vehicles out doing the route around their various establishments. And I don't know how easy it would be to change the time for just one. Okay. I don't know. I think that might be difficult. Fine. Got a couple more hands up. I'll come back. Councillor Bailey, please.
It's just a question, really, but whenever you see these delivery companies come into these type of food establishments, they're usually first thing in the morning or early in the evening. It's never late at night you see one of these roads because the vehicles at an establishment, because they're usually on the road by that time. So I think even if there is a large vehicle coming to an establishment like this, I don't know if it would be very much late at night, but maybe that's a question to ask.
Yeah. Councillor Reid, please.
Yeah, just briefly, I would support Councillor Keaton in that one. I mean, this one is a bit unusual. It's right next to residential development. I'll often look at the one at Blackburn. It's not, it's an industrial estate, so there is a difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just wondering how it would fit in their schedule, but it is maybe worth exploring. Can we agree to explore it with the applicant? Need to be a delegation.
Chair, on that
Delegation to the
basis,
planning officer.
yeah, a delegated grant subject to officers investigating potential reduction of time for delivery vehicles to 10:30. Obviously, that is not going to trigger, if it's not successful, it will not trigger it being reported back.
No, no.
Okay,
That's okay.
Okay.
just for clarity on that one.
Okay, and we accept the reasons for departure now as being policy 27 and policy 13.
Yeah.
Agreed? Okay, so that application is granted on those conditions. Thank you. Do we want to look at the next one or do we need a 10-minute break? Carry on. What are you thinking?
You can manage.
We'll carry on.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, we'll go on to item 6, which is the next planning application. So it's full planning permission for change of use of agricultural building to class 5 general industrial and its respective, and it's the land east of Mains of Tartawi, Canella, Blackburn, and it's application 2025-0323, and again it's Helen Atkinson who's going to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. So I've got a new laptop without a touch screen, which is proving to be quite troublesome. Just bear with me. Right, that's that. Item 6. Right. Okay. Let's get that up there. Okay. Yeah. So as the chair highlighted, the application is for the change of use of an agricultural building to class 5, which is general industrial, at a site to the east of Mains of Tartawi. Sorry, it's gone. The application site is shown in red on this slide. Site is flat and presently accommodates the building, which is the subject of this application. It is within the accessible rural area and surrounded by open countryside, and the unclassified 91C road runs parallel to the site's eastern boundary. Slide 3 shows the usual aerial view of the site. Slide 4 shows the site layout. So the pink rectangle is the extent of the building. It is 91 metres in length and 16.2 metres in width. Access to the site is taken from the southeast corner here. There are areas of car parking dotted around the site. So you see that the rows here in grey, and they equate to 40 spaces in total. There's obviously a yard area that wraps around the building, and there's also a screening bund to the north and east, which you can just make out within this sort of darker band there. Slide 5 shows the building itself. Obviously, this is the main longer elevations. It was originally built for poultry farming. No changes are proposed to the building's elevations. And internally, the building has been divided into 3 units, which is this layout at the top here. So you can just make out the difference in shade there that marks the 3 different units. So matters are, as usual, set out at paragraph 0.1. Firstly, we need to think about the principle. The relevant policies are MPF 4, policy 9, brownfield, vacant and derelict land, which, as we know, supports the reuse of vacant buildings. MPF 4 policy 26, which is business and industry, and that states that development proposals for those types of uses out width allocated sites will only be supported where it is demonstrated there are no suitable alternatives allocated in our LDP or in the employment land audit, and that the nature and scale of the activity will be compatible with the surrounding area. Policy 29 from MPF 4 is rural development, and that seeks to support proposals that will contribute to the viability, sustainability and diversity of our rural communities, and also feed into the local rural economy. And finally, our own policy R2, development proposals in the countryside, state that in accessible rural areas, outwith settlements, which is this site we're talking about, employment proposals are limited brownfield sites. With policy context in mind, information with the application indicates that the poultry farming business stopped in 2016. And from then until 2022, the building appears to have been sort of sporadically rented out or vacant until the change of use that is the subject of this application was undertaken. As set out, proposals for this type of business use are restricted in our LDP areas that are designated for that purpose, as I said, unless it is demonstrated that there are no suitable alternatives and that the nature and scale of the activity is compatible with the surrounding area. A supporting statement provides an appraisal of available employment land in West Hill and Blackburn, which are within 3 kilometres of the site. And the appraisal finds that none of the existing or allocated employment sites in these settlements are available or suitable to accommodate the industrial uses. The planning service considers that the proposal is obviously the redevelopment of a brownfield site for employment, and it could contribute to the viability, sustainability and diversity of the rural community and the local rural economy. And having regard to the additional supporting information, the principle is considered to be acceptable. As there are no alterations to the building's appearance or layout, the usual considerations of siting layout and design do not apply. With respect to general amenity, the use of such a large building for industrial purposes could give rise to noise and odour. In this respect, supporting information outlines likely activities and hours of operation, and these have been considered by colleagues in environmental health. Standard conditions are incorporated into the recommendation before you to control noise and operating hours. And again, this is to be acceptable. Turning to access and servicing, the site is accessed off the road, as I said, running parallel, so there's a point of access. Sufficient visibility displays are already in place, and 40 car parking spaces are shown around the site, which roads development have not raised any issues with. The views of roads development is, however, that the change of use is contrary to LDP policy RD1. This policy requires that development is well related to existing development, that it's close to existing public transport if available, and that it includes formal lit footway connections to adjacent developments that provide access for all. The application does not deliver the infrastructure that policy RD1 seeks, and this is in part due to its rural setting. It's also the view of the planning service that seek such infrastructure would be disproportionate to the nature of the application. It could also be argued that to insist on the strict adherence with policy RD1 would go against the spirit of the development plan that supports the use of vacant brownfield sites and rural development. Planning Service do, of course, acknowledge the position that roads development has taken, but on this application, for the reasons given, the Planning Service holds the view that the lack of compliance with RD1 is acceptable, having regard to the character and nature of the proposal. All other technical matters, such as contaminated land and drainage, are acceptable. The conclusion is that the development represents an opportunity to continue the use of a large rural building in a positive way, provides a base for a few businesses that might be better suited to this more rural location. Application has demonstrated there are no suitable premises in the immediate vicinity, and aside from roads development objecting to the principle, all other consultees are satisfied. Planning Service acknowledge it does not comply with all aspects of LDP policy RD1, but this needs to be weighed against other material considerations that I have outlined in the presentation. As we said before, it's the decision maker decide how much weight to these considerations. The recommendation before you is one of approval. So just some photographs. Obviously, this one's taken from Google Maps, but you can see the extent of the building looking at the southern elevation. Similarly, just looking at the long axis parallel to the road. This is the existing access in, and you can see the elevation of the building there. Similarly, at the point of access, looking to the south. This is the east facing elevation, and you can see this land rising here, which is the existing bunding. At the top of the building, north facing elevation, and just wrapping back around the west facing, and you can see the sort of car parking that's been formed. So that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to take any questions as and when. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Can I just ask Helen? It's they're going to divide this into 3. So is there more than one access? There's that big door on the end. Is there other access available?
There are 2 accesses at each end. Thank you, Councillor.
I just think if you were the unit in the middle there, the pink one, how do you get in?
I think there's only the 2 access points, because that is.
And one on the side.
Look at the photos.
It'd be okay if you had a unit on the end, but how do you get into the middle?
I can look it up if you just give me a couple of minutes to look on our system, Chair, if you wish.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I'll just go off camera for a second.
Okay, I'll just pause. Councillor Keating, come back to your question when she's looked that out.
Thanks.
On the
Okay,
site
there's a,
layout
yeah.
plan, there is a door that's stated on the site layout plan on 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, the fourth slide. It says door halfway down.
If
On
I
the
can
one
come back in, yeah, just this is very difficult to pick up on that
That's fine,
image, but
sorry.
that does say roller door.
All right. Okay.
So for unit 2, yeah, the pink one in the middle, it would have an access there. So I think that will probably line up with this image here. Let's just
All right.
double
So
check.
that's the grey bit on that one. Yeah.
Yeah, so apologies, but yeah, it's quite difficult at on the scale. But yes, you can get into unit 2. Yeah, thank you.
That clears that up. Thank you. Councillor Keating, please.
Thanks, Marion. I've only got 2 this time, Helen.
Okay.
So I'm using my eyeballs a lot today. Slide 4 with the aerial photograph, and then slide 5. Are the central 16 parking spaces, are they beginning to extend into what looks from slide 3, sorry, slide 3 and 4, slide 3 to be arable land, and the area to the, oh gosh, is it south? Away from the road, there's a large area of green, which again from slide 3 appears to be arable land. So are we doing anything to change the status of that land by, if we choose to, approving this planning permission? It's my first question. And the second one is simply on 611. I know that you got a statement saying that there was no available alternatives, either Blackburn or West Hill, and that the planning service was satisfied. Now, I can see Blackburn quite easily, but West Hill, I just wonder how you satisfied yourself as to the veracity of the statement that said that there's nothing available of reasonable equivalence in West Hill. I'm not disputing what the statement says. I'm just asking how the planning service got comfortable with that statement. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Keating. The second question I'll take first. The statement provides an assessment of properties within those 2 settlements. They have sort of numbered each property. So I've got sort of vacant land to the east of Westport Industrial Estate. I've got properties in Blackburn Industrial Estate. And then they provided comments about the properties or land that they had identified. So for one, they've said it's got an extant permission, it's not available. For another, they've said it's inaccessible. So I think they've listed 15, I think, properties or areas of land and given reasons why those areas have been discounted. So it's fairly thorough in terms of some others that I might have seen. So I think that's how we've said we are satisfied with that information. It's a judgment that the planning service has made.
Okay.
So the first question was more to do with the prime agricultural land, wasn't it? And
that's exactly the question. You've got the red dots in the right place.
Okay.
So specifically what I'm going to call the central 16 parking spaces. Again, I'm just using my eyes, but when I compare slide 4 and slide 3 and slide 4, it looks as though they are beginning, only slightly I accept, to encroach on what, again, to my eyes, and it's an aerial photograph only, looks like agricultural land. And then obviously slide 4, is it? Yes, slide 4 has the red area, the red boundary, it's significantly extending away from the car park into what, again, I would categorize as arable land. Question, if we give this planning permission, does that somehow comprise a change of use, or is it just that's the site that we got the map for?
Thank you, Councillor. I would just remind members that this site already has planning permission to be used as, albeit that it hasn't operated in that way for some time. So it has already got planning permission to be used for the poultry rearing industry. So any loss has already been considered by that earlier consent, so there wouldn't be any additional through the consideration of this application.
So the poultry farm had 40 parking spaces.
I don't know that. Sorry.
Yeah, I suspect it might not have had, to be honest, Helen.
What I'm trying to say is that the red line, the area that has been considered by the previous consent would be the same as this one.
I accept that answers my second part of the question. I can understand that, and I agree with you on that. And as I say, I'm only using my eyes on this one. That's fine. I'm content with what you've told me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gifford, please.
Yeah, thanks. Then given that this was a chicken shed before, but it's now been subdivided to 3 units, which presumably are going to have people working in them, what welfare facilities have this building now got? I've seen nothing on the drawings, and presumably they're going to have things like kitchens and bathrooms and such like things. So where's all the drainage going to? Because there's no septic tanks that I can see anywhere in the drawings either. Do we know that? And in terms of what else is there, I mean, the drawings look like a nice big clean shed in a nice big open hardcore car park encroaching on Greenfield site or not. But from the photographs, there's clearly a pile of stuff. There's a kind description of it lying all over the place, including what looks like a porter cabin. Is that part of this, or is that just lying there like so much other stuff?
Okay, thank you, Councillor. From the floor plan here, then it just appears to be for those uses, for the actual industrial use. It doesn't seem to be any toilets, kitchen space, anything, amenities of that nature. You're right that one of the photos does show some sort of, yeah, maybe something in here, sort of porter cabin type thing, so that may accommodate those facilities. Whether they are there or not, it's not necessarily a planning matter. That would be more for colleagues in building standards. But this planning application does not include the retention.
Sure do.
Just
decided. She was a Y and now is a P.
All right.
I'm just hearing somebody coming in.
Okay. Yes.
So yeah, the provision of those sort of utilities and the internal space usage would not be a planning matter. That would be for building standards. These, I think, porter cabins are not shown on the plans as something that would be subject to this approval if we got to that stage. They would need a further application.
But so they don't have, if those are porter cabins which have got the facilities that seem to be missing, that doesn't have permission at all because it's not in the planning history.
No, it doesn't have permission, nor would it be granted permission through anything we got to here because they're not on the floor. No, they're not shown on this proposed floor site plan.
There's just something very odd about a place with 40 car parking spaces and no facilities for the people that are driving the 40 cars.
Can I just add to that? I mean, this shed, I mean, it was originally an agricultural building, but it's not actually within a sort of farmsteading layout where people would have had access to a house, for instance. So it seems to be totally on its own, am I right?
Geographically, it's not really anything around it that I'm sure that is maybe a cluster of buildings, but yeah, it doesn't follow a sort of typical agricultural pattern of being associated with an existing farm. Obviously, the merits of the original shed and the poultry farming business were considered separately to what members are being asked to think about today.
Okay. But I think Councillor Gifford does raise a very valid point there. It does seem to be lacking. Any further questions? No. So in that case, we can move on to the debate, but before we go to consider it further, can I just confirm that members are satisfied that they have received all the necessary information and feel able to participate in the determination of the application?
Yes,
Oh,
Neil,
Councillor.
Neil, we have a question.
Yeah, Councillor Bailey, please.
I'm just wondering if this has been agricultural poultry shed that in 2016, and then it was operating from 2022 up to 2022, something else. It's a big enough shed that maybe the facilities have been built inside. So there's something there that we just don't know what's, you know, for facilities for people who work in there, maybe inside the building itself. But it does seem very strange that, yeah, if these parking spaces that we see on the drawing, I'm just wondering if that was associated to the poultry building, because there would have been, you know, lots of vehicles, I'd imagine, to that size of building coming, picking up, delivering. So that's maybe where the parking aspect came from historically beforehand. So it has raised a few questions as to what's actually the state of condition of the building right now, what it is being used for, and how it's being used. Sorry, I just wanted to comment on that, but I know that probably you've not got any more clearer an answer than.
Yeah, I can come back in, Councillor Bailey. Well, it's not material that this is a retrospective application, so how it's been divided is what's there just now. I mean, yes, there may not be amenities within this area. I suspect that those porter cabins do provide some amenities to employees, but it would appear that they are not on the proposed site layout plan. So if we were minded to support the change of use of this building, there would need to be a further application to retain that porter cabin element separately.
Okay.
Okay, and we think the ones that you see in the picture, that they don't actually have planning consent.
They're not showing on the planning history. This site has been subject to investigation, so it may be that that's an element that needs a further investigation and a further application. Again, it's sitting separately from what we're being asked to think about today.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
So debate-wise, are members satisfied they've got sufficient information? I heard yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so in that case, it's in Ward 12, so I'll go to those members first. Councillor Gifford, please.
Yeah, I'm deeply uncomfortable with this, I have to say. I know we're not allowed to make comment about retrospective applications, but it's a retrospective application. I have a bigger concern about how this whole place is operating. It doesn't look great from the outside. We've no idea what's inside, but what we don't have are any details about how these 3 units subdivided into the big building or not are actually being operated in terms of facilities, people's health and safety being looked after, and what have you. So I think we should refuse this until we see a comprehensive planning application for the site within the red line boundary as marked there, not just this building, showing us how it can be operated safely and within all normal rules of health and safety, hygiene, welfare, etc., etc. So we don't have that in front of us just now.
Okay, thank you. Jill, you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. I think I'd just warn members about bringing in, matters that aren't material. Helen advised earlier some of the issues raised by Councillor Gifford there would be dealt with under separate legislation, so perhaps by building standards.
But we can't surely give permission to a building that has no welfare facilities for the workers that are in it. We have no information about that whatsoever.
Perhaps you're bring Helen back in to address that bit.
Yeah, thank you, Jill. Thank you, Councillor Gifford. And yeah, just reiterate what Jill's saying. Our role is to consider the land use planning. Is the use of this building appropriate for a Class 5 use? I take the point that councillors or some councillors may be concerned about other aspects of running a business, health and safety, and provision of amenities, but they do not sit with the planning service to consider, to enforce. It's not for the planning service to enforce whether there are toilets in a building, for example, or whether the operator complies with employment legislation or health and safety. We are here to consider whether this land use is appropriate for this building. Thank you.
Okay. Any further comments from Ward 12? Councillor Launchy, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Gifford, do you require additional information for this to determine this issue? Sorry, this application.
Well, in a nutshell, yes. But what we've just heard is that in terms of what's in front of us, we can't ask for that information, which I'm struggling with.
In that case, can you formulate it in details, and then we can require further procedure?
I thought that's what I just tried. In terms of splitting this building in three, I have no problem with that. You can split it in three. It's what you then use it for is the issue. And I can't see how you can use this properly without more information about how it's going to be operated. We wouldn't allow a new build to go up in this circumstance.
Right. Can I come back, Chair?
Yes, come back in.
Thank you very much. In this particular case, I support Councillor Gifford in that we require further procedure. Thank you.
I'll come back for the clarification of that. Councillor Reid, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm always a bit concerned when fellow members feel they don't have enough information. Could this be deferred for a site visit at all?
Shots first.
Do we need a site visit?
Well,
Councillor Reid, what do you want to find out with that site visit?
Yeah, a site visit certainly shows what's happening and where it's happening, but it doesn't go back to my fundamental point that the facilities to operate this place in its new split up condition are not part of the plan permission. And I can't for the life of me understand why they're not. We wouldn't allow a new build warehouse to be brought forward without welfare facilities, drainage, septic tanks, electricity. You know, it's part of it, and yet we seem to be doing it with this.
Site visit might tell you, as you suggested, if it's all been retrofitted inside.
Site visit might be useful. Give us the most up to date.
Is that a solution? Defer for a site visit? Jill?
Thank you, Chair. I think obviously members are entitled to ask for a site visit. We can just ascertain the reasons why, what information would it provide. I think, as Helen's explained, we're looking at the land use here, and some of the matters relate to other legislation.
Maybe some clarity is required, I think, as to what's actually happening on the ground, what we're seeing here in the planning application. Councillor Bailey.
I think a site visit would be favourable to us to see what's actually happening on site, but it only gives us a snapshot of what's happening at that time. It's not how it's to move on as a business for operation. And I know that's not coming under the plan and what we're discussing today, but I don't see fully that. I think there's other ways we could get the information we need for the site visit, so that we can fully determine this. But I do get the aspect where planning is discussing that it is as a plan respective application, and what we're talking about today could be agreed on. But it's that facilities, it's that little bit more of the more information that we need as operating further on, and then we'd have to ask for permission for that. I think we're looking at maybe two different things here, as planning is suggested, and I think that's the second thing is what we should be pushing for.
Okay, Councillor McHale, please.
We could have a site visit, but we could get on the site visit, and it could just be as we've seen in the slides. We wouldn't have any more information, possibly. Is it not possible just to defer a decision being made today, and Helen in fact follows up and gets the information that Councillor Gifford was asking for? So the suggestion is, can we not defer a decision? If we're not going to go ahead with this, could we defer the decision today? Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a response to that?
Chair, if I may, well, the answer to Councillor McHale's question is yes, you can defer, and you'll need reasons to do that. And the information that is being requested, my understanding is on the internal fit out,
or the relationship with that porta cabin as well is something that potentially you could find further information. I mean, there's a porta cabin on site that doesn't appear to have planning permission.
Yeah.
So understanding its relationship to the buildings might be something.
Councillor Gifford.
So I would have to, to get more information would certainly be helpful. But if that information then is that porta cabin is the welfare facilities 3 units, that's got to be part of this plan permission.
On that basis, you know, there's a relationship between the arrangements on site that aren't clear to members.
Yeah. I think I would support that as well, that a site visit just to see what's there.
So a site visit rather than a deferral. I thought we were talking now about a deferral for further information regarding the buildings on site and the relationship between one another.
So would that suffice if we just asked for the information?
Can I come in, please?
Councillor Lonche, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that this committee can request an accompanied site visit during which questions could be asked for from the applicant. Thank you.
No.
Yes.
Can I go back to Councillor Reynolds? Would Councillor Reynolds, Councillor Reid. It's the Glen. Would deferring for further information be suffice?
Well, it would be for me. It was really because colleagues seem to be, requesting extra information. I mean, in theory, you could actually do both. You could actually have a site visit, and whilst you're having your site visit, you could get further information, or you can just request further information. I'm very uncomfortable with making decisions when colleagues are saying that they need further information.
Yeah. So can we just request further defer till the next cycle for further information as to how the other facilities on the site relate to the building?
That's going to be operated.
Yeah. I mean, is it already divided up? I was wondering as well, is that something, is that already been done?
That's my understanding, Chair, is that the division has taken place already, yes.
Yeah. Councillor Walker, please.
Thank you. So if we're not going on a site visit, can we ask for a detailed floor plan so we can see the entrances, how the building's split? Normally, if this was a new application, we would be hearing from the planners about how they've considered drainage and sewerage and all that sort of stuff. So I am struggling with a lack of detail here. Thank you.
Can I come in, Chair? This is the proposed floor plan, so this is the level of information we would get for any planning application. So we wouldn't get anything beyond that, that other than what's on the screen.
We've just had that on the last application. It's got counters, ducting for electricity, plumbing, toilets, welfare facilities, everything's on the drawings we got for that one.
I would say that that one goes beyond the requirements of the validation standards. I mean, this is an empty, a big space, industrial uses. I take the point it doesn't show any utilities, but I'm not sure what else you would expect a class 5 use to show on a proposed floor plan.
Chair, we've had a discussion then about potential for deferral. I think there's been a framing of the information that members feel is missing, which is about the porter cabin, the relationship to it, and an element of more operating details. Jill, I would, in terms of competency around deferral, there are reasons there. Councillor Gifford, you've come forward with that proposal and supported by Councillor Reid.
Well,
to go into
for defer it and see what comes forward, and then if that answers all the questions, then great. If not, we can see what happens after that.
I think it might be worth asking as well, Councillor Keating's point about those car parking spaces that appear to be on the green space.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Councillor McHale.
Thanks again, Chair. So if we defer the decision, could we also ask that the applicant attend our next meeting and all the kind of questions which may have been unanswered, and he can then respond to that?
We can't ask them. No.
You can, but you can ask them. You can't demand it. You can surely ask them.
That wouldn't be normal practice to ask them to come in. They can choose to request to address the committee if they wish to put forward that position, but it's not something that we would seek them to attend.
Okay, no, I'm okay with that. So why don't we just tell them what the issues are, and it might be to their benefit if they were able to attend the next meeting as a speaker.
Helen can make them aware about the opportunity to come along and address some of the concerns of the committee.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's the solution. Well done.
Yes.
I agree with that. Okay.
So
I'm proposing a deferral. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So can we agree that we defer for further information as detailed?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes.
Agreed. And I'll get a little clarity. So I think we spoke about getting further information regarding the buildings that are on site and the relationship between them. There was some question about whether or not we could get more detailed plans to understand the operation of drainage and sewerage on site. I don't know if that's possible or not. And then some information about whether or not the parking is on arable land. Arable land. So that's the things I've got. Is that all? Some things, Helen, that are appropriate?
Yes, some of the things are appropriate, but yes, I've scribbled those down. So yeah, that's fine. Happy to go with that.
Okay. Okay, so detailed floor plans, including drainage and sewerage, is something that we can accept and ask them for, yes?
We can, but I think that they have said that there's no changes to drainage or sewerage given it's an existing building, but either way I can confirm that next time round.
Okay.
So how do we get clarification about what that porter cabin is being used for?
Well, that'll be the relationship between the buildings that are on site. That would include that and the relationship of those buildings to one another.
So fairly wide scope.
Okay.
Okay.
I can be more clear in terms of the buildings, including porter cabin, if you would like.
Especially.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's no problem.
Or call it a temporary structure or whatever.
Okay.
So
Okay.
We agreed that.
So we've agreed to defer that one. We've got a list of the information that we're seeking. And I think at this point, before we move on, take a break till 12 o'clock. Comfort break.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will
stop the recording. Back to the Geary Area Committee. We're on item 7, which is full planning permission for change of use of open space to form garden ground and form driveway, land south of Ledoch Road, West Hill, and its application 2026-0030. So This is a revised report, including the letter from the Community Council, so it was in your updated pack when that was sent out. So I'll hand over first to Helen to take us through the application, please.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Just a quick correction as well on the report, that on the cover sheet it says it's in the accessible rural area. That's obviously incorrect. It's in West Hill, so apologies, and that's the correction. So as the chair introduced, it's for a change of use of an area of amenity land, open space, to form a private garden ground and vehicle driveway in Leddock Road in West Hill. So the application site is shown in red, and this wee slither at the top of the image there. It's around 65 square meters. The blue line shows the applicant's land ownership. So they live at the property known as Del Dios, which is in the blue line. And it's also noted that there's a garage, which is just, you can just make out in the blue line there as well, which is the garage that serves Del Dios. Curiously, that garage is accessed from Old Skene Road, and you can see in the green line there the applicant's right of access. So they have a vehicle access off Old Skene Road, they have a garage here, but from the garage to the house there's quite a change in levels, and there's steps that run along the side of the garage into their garden ground. So unfortunately you wouldn't be able to access Del Dios through a vehicle driveway presently. The open space area is grassed. It contains a mature deciduous tree, which is a notable landscape feature. And the area is residential, with immediate neighbours being number 12 Leddock Road, which is this property here, to the west, and then the rear gardens of numbers 2 and 4 Leddock Gardens to the east. It becomes slightly clearer on that one there. So this is Del Dios. This is the applicant's site. They've got their garage down here, and this is the application site. This slither of land in there, which you can see on slide 4. As I said, it's a change of use of the land in the red line. You can just make out this sort of rectangular area here in red, to form a private garden ground, and they would be forming a vehicle access in this space that would be formed with slabs and granite chips. On this boundary here, the western boundary, with the remaining open amenity space, that boundary would remain open, so there wouldn't be any sort of fence or anything proposed there. Excuse me. And on the eastern side boundary here, that would remain as existing. So there's a range of sort of close boarded fences along that side there. The existing tree, which obviously the circular feature there, would also be retained. Now the next slide shows us where they wish to put a proposed boundary gate and fence. But just to make it clear that that would sit right back here, is where they'd be putting the gate treatment, and that is not within the application site. They could do that through their usual sort of permitted development rights, but just to show that image there, would be the proposed gate. So that would be at the rear of the garden of Del Dios, but is well set back. So I'll just get that slide back up. The applicants have submitted a supporting statement, which advises that their home is essentially sort of landlocked. They can't access it by a vehicle, and this application represents a way of trying to achieve vehicle access with the car, which will help with age and ongoing health concerns. So the key matters are set out at paragraph 6.1. In considering the principle, that's set out at 6.2. It is an existing open space and it is protected by the development plan. So MPF 4 policy 20 is blue and green infrastructure, and that seeks to avoid the fragmentation of such infrastructure and their loss. And our own local plan policy PR1 states that development will not normally be permitted on any area of open space unless the new use is ancillary to open space. However, this area of open space is not identified as protected land in the LGP settlement statement. As I said, the area is 65 square metres and of wider open space, the larger rectangle is 212 square metres. So the application site is around a quarter of the larger space. So I would say it's fairly small space in itself. It would unlikely have given, it's unlikely given the proximity to houses that it would have provided any sort of significant recreational value. The space is also sort of standalone. It doesn't provide any obvious link to any other green networks within the immediate vicinity of the site. The space does have some amenity value in terms of landscaping and green setting, and obviously the wider site accommodates that tree as well. So whilst the development would result in the loss of some open space and a grassed area at this location, it would not compromise the overall quality of the amenity area and its contribution to the visual amenity of the existing street. And for these reasons, the planning service considered the loss of around a quarter of that wider amenity land to form a garden ground, essentially, that can facilitate a vehicle access for Del Dios would be a suitable departure. And therefore, the principle can be accepted. In terms of layout, siting and design and residential amenity, key policies are policy P1, layout, siting and design, and MPF 4, policy 14, which is design, quality and place. The area of land to be taken up to form the driveway has been minimised, and the surfacing materials are considered to be in keeping with the character of other driveways typically found within the streets. The access driveway would sit comfortably alongside the existing open space area. And as I said, the gate is set back out, sitting right back here, so it wouldn't be visually prominent in the street scene in any way. The use of the driveway for that domestic purpose is also not expected to affect the amenity of nearby residential properties either. And roads development has raised no objection to the proposal in terms of any sort of highway safety or access issues. So given its minor scale, combined with the fact that the open aspect of the area would remain unaffected, the layout and design of the driveway is in keeping with the character of the surrounding residential estate, and the planning service concludes that aspect also acceptable. As noted in the report, and as we'll see on slide 6, there is a tree pretty much in the centre of the remaining open space. The applicant has submitted plans to show tree protection measures to be formed around the tree whilst this driveway whilst a change of use would be undertaken. And again, that aspect is considered to be acceptable. To conclude, the open space subject to this application is minor in scale, and the application site forms 25% of the wider space. What's to be retained does still hold some visual amenity value and does still keep the tree as well. The driveway is of course typical of those found within residential estate, and we are, as planning service, is satisfied there will be no unacceptable impact on residential amenity, and this development would of course bring betterment to the occupants of Del Dios. So for the reasons set out in the report, the planning service feels that this proposal can be considered as a suitable departure from the development plan. A few photographs, fairly self-explanatory. So this is where the proposed change of use of land would be, on this side here, and this is where the driveway area would be formed. Similar view there. These are the back of gardens on Leduc Gardens. So these back onto the application site, and this kind of rubble wall here is the rear of Del Dios, where it abuts the application site. This is in the back of Del Dios, and it would be along this area here where that gate would be formed to get access in. This is obviously looking from the application site back towards Leduc Road as well, and you can obviously see a range of driveways, hard materials, typical of this area. So that concludes the application, sorry, my presentation, and happy to take questions as and when required. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Walker, please.
Thank you. It was just the objection raised by West Eldoret Community Council mentioned concern regarding the configuration of the fence and gate. It would have been helpful to us to understand what the concerns were, but I can see no concerns from a planning aspect in the report. It was just really to get confirmation, Helen, that there's no planning concern about the gate and the fence.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Walker. Yeah, just to clarify, and I'm not sure that that was understood by everybody that might have made representation, but that gate is going to be sitting right back here. I don't know whether people felt it was going to be at the top end, but to be clear, it would sit at the back here. It's typical of a domestic boundary treatment, but to clarify that these works are sitting at the back there and could be done without requiring planning permission themselves. So even if they did require consent, I'd be of the view that they don't present any issues in terms of visual amenity. The materials are fine, the height is fine, and they don't cause any issues in terms of any highway safety as well.
Super, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reid, please.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Helen, for the presentation. Just a quick one on the picture from Leduc Road and the diagram you got there. It does appear, when I first saw the photograph, I thought that the gully and the area around about the gully was deteriorating, and I was concerned about, you know, obviously construction work there, it getting worse. But it does appear that they are relocating the gully. Can you just maybe expand on what's going on there? And I take it, obviously, that those works will be brought up to our standards.
Yes, that's my understanding, that it's just sort of repair works. I'd imagine, I can't answer that. I don't know whether Ken can contribute to that aspect. It's more technical than I'd be confident to answer. I mean, it would be on private land, I suppose. So there's, it would need to meet our standards where there's any sort of connection with the roads infrastructure. I don't know if Ken's still on the call and can.
Yeah, sorry, Helen, I mean actually on the public road there's a gully or a drain, and it appears to be just where the drive would be, but in that diagram you've got there's a square block just to the left of the yeah, that's it there, and it appears to be a new gully. I'm struggling to zoom into it, so I might be wrong there. It's just for clarity there, please.
Maybe one for Ken, maybe.
Or if you can give me again, if I can I can't zoom in on that image as well, like we're all struggling, so I can have a look on our system if you can give me a couple of seconds.
Thanks, Chair. Maybe I can help a little bit.
Thank you.
The existing drop curbs at the garage will need to be extended, and the gully will need to be moved because you can't have the gully within the area of drop curbs. So that'll all be taken care of as part of a road excavation permit.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Keating, please.
Thanks, Chair. A couple from me, Helen. 2.3 says that the land which we're being asked to give planning permission for is owned by the council. So I'm assuming that the planning permission stands separate from ownership, and we're giving somebody a planning application if we choose to do it on land they don't control or own at the moment, and that's a separate conversation. Just want to check that. And then the second point is on 2.5, the short supporting statement identifies age and health as a justification for what's being asked for. And yet at 8.1, we say there's no IIA because whether we grant or refuse has no impact on protected characteristics. Now, age is protected characteristic of the applicant. So I'm wondering why we think at 8.1, there's no differential impact. I'm just going on the basis of what's written in the paper that says age is one of the issues. The granting or refusing of the application. So I wonder why that's the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, what was the first question, Councillor Keating? Sorry.
Okay. So I'm just basically making sure when we give, if we have planning application,
oh yes, yeah,
approval, we don't somehow gift Aberdeenshire property. No. I figured that way. I just want to be absolutely clear.
The two are entirely separate, so yes, you're correct. Whether the council sells this piece of land to the person is an entirely separate process to what we're looking at today. In terms of the IIA, yes, they have made a statement that they are older and there may be some health concerns. That was in their supporting statement. I don't know whether we've missed an opportunity to do an IIA on that basis. I'm not sure I can answer that confidently. They have made said that it would help them in their old age. I don't think they've overplayed that possibly in their supporting statement, and sometimes that's a judgment we make as a planning service that might not have triggered an IIA. Where it's not been overly, let's say, comment or not overly highlighted by the applicant. That's all I can say.
No, that's fine. That's the reason it's not been done. I just wanted to check. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bailey, please.
Thank you, Chair. Helen, it's just really for point of clarity for myself, really. I know you talked about we showed it on the drawings, the gate and so on, that would be a separate to what we're discussing here about the change of use in open space. And you show the drawings there of a gate and the wall boundary beside it as well. But just to clarify, that wall part there, even though that's adjacent to amenity land that's owned by the council, just to clarify that that's going to be something separate rather than this application today.
Yes, councillor, that would be separate. You can, regardless of this application here, you can form a boundary treatment up to certain height requirements without requiring planning permission. The works they've shown here sit within their current curtilage, so that they could do those works without requiring planning permission. The application we're looking at is just simply the change of use of that slither to create that garden ground, as we're calling it, that private space.
That's it. I just wanted to clarify that it was if they needed our separate permission, but if it's coming within that boundary, then that's just what I wanted to clarify.
Yes, that's right.
It's not shown or discussed about that anywhere here.
Yeah.
We've seen the drawings today. That clarifies that for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Joji, please.
Yeah, thank you. No, Councillor Keating did touch on the question I wanted to ask as well, but I just need a bit further clarity because I did read an objection that was querying whether the land had been sold, but then obviously we can see in the paper that Aberdeenshire Council still owns this piece of land. But my confusion comes from future recourse to challenge anyone else parking there if that resident does not own the land. So I'm just wondering if a separate conversation has been had on transfer of ownership for that reason, because what if someone decides to park there, then they'll be like, oh well, you don't own the land. So it's just about potential disputes over who has a right to park there if the ownership still remains under Aberdeenshire Council. So it's just a thought. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Joji. And the normal course of events is that somebody like this would approach the council, will you sell me this land? Often the council will then say yes, but it is on the proviso that you get planning permission to do what you wish to do. Once they have planning permission, then obviously the completion of the sale can take place, which is the likely course of events for this site here. So that the land would then become owned by the applicant, by the people that live in Del Dios. They can then implement their planning permission and the land is entirely within the homeowner's ownership. And then, you know, if somebody wished to park there, then that is a civil matter between the homeowner at Del Dios and the car that may be choosing to park there. So there's a course of events that are likely to happen once this application gets determined.
Thank you.
Any further questions? No.
Thank you.
So in that case, we can go to the debate on this one. But before we do that, can I just confirm that members are satisfied that they have received all the necessary information and feel able to participate in the determination of this application?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so it's Ward 13 this time. The local members want to come in first. Councillor Walker.
Thank you. I think, as the report says, the use of the open space is a minor encroachment, and I think the open aspect is going to remain, the trees going to remain. And if planning for the house was being determined now, there would be a requirement for access for vehicles. And I think in other policy areas, we promote and encourage folk to live well at home as they get older. And I think we should do all we can to link this within planning where we can. And I think Councillor Keating's point about the IIA, I think if the planner's recommendations was to refuse this, I'd be looking for an IIA. But happy to support the planner's recommendations and the agreement, the reason for departure, but happy to hear others' views first. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McHale, please.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Helen, for the report. I mean, this is an application about a piece of land or a house that's currently a landlocked house. So I'm going to be supporting of the application. I mean, it appreciates a departure from planning policy, but you've confirmed that this is kind of minor and acceptable. And it does comply with a number of policies. I mean, you mentioned one I wasn't very familiar with, but policy 20, blue and green infrastructure, about open spaces. You mentioned about policy 14, design quality in place, infill housing development for policy 3, and it complies with policy P1, layout, setting and design. So on balance, whilst it's a departure from the policies on open and green spaces, it does meet with other policies. So I'm going to be supporting the planner's recommendation to grant full planning permission. So thank you. Subject, of course, to the conditions shown in the report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Joji.
Yeah, I agree with my two ward colleagues as well, that we approve the application subject to the conditions in 10.1, because particularly I've noticed there was a bit of pushback regarding the impact, such as open space, but it is made very clear in 10.2 that the remaining open space area would be retained as green space. We'd retain the visual amenity value of the space within the existing street scene, and we can also see that that there's no material impact on the integrity of the open space. And that answers a lot of questions that have been raised in the objections. So yeah, I would agree, subject to the conditions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other members wish to come in? Councillor Miller, please.
Yeah, I don't have anything really to add from my ward colleagues. Happy to support this as it's laid out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments from members? No, I would just echo Councillor Joji there. We do worry about the loss of green space when we've asked for green space in the original application, but it's a minor part and there is still a fair bit to be retained there. So it'll still get some green space and retain the tree.
Sure.
So no further comments in that case. Are we agreeing then to go with the planner's recommendations as written on page 73 and agree the reasons for departure?
Yes.
Okay. Right, so that's agreed. So will we take an early lunch, come back at 1 o'clock and start item 9?
One's quite tight. Okay, so yes, is it possible to make it 15?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, because folk there will need the chance to get out.
It's quite tight, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so we're starting again at 1:15. Okay, I'll stop the recording now.